Hello friends, Tal here, and welcome to another new video. Today we're going to be talking about protection paladins, my little updated thoughts on them, very quick. This isn't really a focus on prop paladin video, as you can tell by the title, but essentially I wanted to go ahead and mention that protection paladins are in a better spot that they were when I last made my video, that whole protection paladins might have some problems video. Once they updated the tooltip and the spell for the Light of the Protector and Hand of the Protector, they made it do a little bit more healing. It does feel a lot better tanking on a paladin. It's still not quite what I would call reliable, right? I would say that maybe it's more okay-ish, but it's definitely not something that I would say is negative or bad in any way, shape, or form. They fill a very specific role and niche as a fantastic switch-off tank. Like, they're very good in short bursts of tanking. They're fantastic for it. They have a high amount of mitigation. But anything long-term tanking, you always have something on you, that's when they would suffer a little bit. And for the most part, fights like that don't really exist. Dragons and Nightmares is the only one that comes to mind right now. And for the most part, you really aren't tanking something literally the entire time you're in a fight. So, along with the change to Cavalier, giving you 2 Divine Steel charges, which you can then make into a 20% cooldown, which was actually very reminiscent of the old Divine Protection, which gave you the 20, 20, or 40 on Magic. I think they're in a good spot, and overall they have very high mitigation again. It's not something that I would want to main as a raid tank, and at least as far as my group goes, but it's good and definitely needs to be given the proper respect and the proper props, I guess. Beyond that, what I wanted this video to be was just my last final thoughts, my last sort of where the tanks stand in my personal opinion going into Legion. I mean, this is going to be the last video that I'm going to be making before the expansion launches, and to be completely honest with you guys, as you already can tell from the Monday mark from earlier today, this is going to be the last video that I'm going to be editing, putting in footage and everything for a while. I have a couple of responsibilities. If you've seen the Monday mark, you know what I'm talking about, but there's a couple things that I have to focus on to make sure I do, and this is going to be the last actual content, video making thing that I do for a while, unless something pops up out of nowhere. So keep that in mind. But basically, I just want to go down the tanks real quick, just pop off one little last final things. If you guys are, still undecided what you want to do, or if you want to know my absolute final last minute opinions on everything, we'll start with Warrior. So Protection Warrior is undisputedly the best progression tank right now. And it's not just that Ignore Pain's the best active mitigation out of any tank, it's not just that it works on everything, but they also have really fantastic talents for group settings. They have Inspiring Presence, they have Safeguard, they're good in raids and in Mythic Plus dungeons. I find them to be just very solid, reliable tanks, and that's something that you should always keep in mind. In the beginning of an expansion, when you're undergeared, when you're still learning things and facing new challenges that you haven't faced before, having a very reliable tank and feeling that you can go and take on any encounter and be okay and be fine and be able to deal with it, it's a very powerful thing. So my final thoughts on Warriors is just they're in a great place. The problem is always when you are the top of the list, you're the first one that gets looked at for changes, and by changes I mean nerfs. I hope they don't do too much to Protection Warriors. I think that they're in a great spot. I don't want them to get nerfed all the way down the ground. I want them to be good this raid tier at least, and just be good overall throughout the entire expansion. Some of the other classes have the benefit of scaling massively with stats and gear and everything to the point where they'll either overshadow or equalize with the Protection Warrior, and I hope they don't get left behind in the dust once we get into the second raid tier or anything like that. Moving on from there, I already gave my thoughts on Protection Paladin. The only other things I want to say is, yes, they're very good at short bursts of tanking. Anything that they're tanking for too long is a little bit dangerous for them as far as mitigation goes. But I do want to point out that they have some of the best utility, and they have Blessing of Spell Warding, which is a brand new spell that basically is bot but for magic. Can't deny the benefits of that. Can't deny the benefits of things like Aegis of Light and all the different blessings that they have. He almost said hands because they used to be hands, but they have fantastic utility and it can't be taken away from them. Final Stand is probably the best tank cooldown in the entire game. But that's just what I wanted to say. Just reiterate on the Protection Paladin one last time. Beyond that, we then have the Blood Decay, which for the most part is, it's not bad. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the top tank or anything like that, but it's not bad at all. The other thing that they have is a lot of rage utility. Of course, they're one of 2 tanks that has Mass Grip, and they have a more reliable, faster to use wider range mass grip. It's on a longer cooldown, so I still stand by my belief that Vengeance Demon Hunter is the go-to mass gripper because the circle isn't as big, but it's not something that you can't work around. Blood DKs, though, have a fantastic talent tree system, which really gives them a lot of flexibility in dealing with encounters. Even though there's kind of a cookie-cutter build that you want to go, you have flexibility to take other options when the situation demands it, and that flexibility is invaluable when it comes to tanking, as well as just having Vampiric Blood up almost all the time. If you somehow get lucky and get the legendary, that it'll only be better. But basically, Blood DK is also in a very fantastic, strong spot. Then we go into the Guardian Druid, which is arguably, depending on who you ask, the second best tank or the best tank, tied with Warriors. The good thing about the Guardian Druid is that they have so much more health to deal with mechanics than the other tanks, and their mastery does help them out by not making it be a big mana sponge for the healers, by making their heals increase, basically giving them a sort of percentage to percentage for their health going up. They're very solid, they're very strong, they still have battle res, they still have stampeding roar, they have the affinities for extra utility and raid things, and they're just very, very good. They're not super crazy fantastic when it comes to DPS or anything else, something that the protection paladin actually does excel at. It has huge amounts of burst, huge amounts of DPS, but it's not something that's too crazy good for druids. They have other areas that make them strong, and I personally still am dedicated to being a druid. I think they're going to be fantastic. They're going to be very, very reliable, and they're going to be very strong. From there, we move over to the Demon Hunter. Now, the Demon Hunter is the newest addition to the game, to tanks at least. And the way that they play is like a mixture of Warrior and a mixture of DK. In that Warrior, they have a lot of mitigation up front. They can keep a lot of mitigation on them. When they have it up, they feel immortal. When they don't, they kind of take a lot of damage, unlike the Warrior. But then that's when the Blood DK part comes in, where they can heal up and do a very, very decent amount of healing on themselves. Not only from all the constant AoE that they're doing, but also Soul Cleave just heals for a lot, especially if you have a bunch of soul fragments all over the place. It's very, very good. Overall, I would say that Demon Hunters are also in a very middle of the pack. I would say probably below Blood DKs as far as like survivability and reliability goes. I think that Blood DKs probably have a better talent system in place to give them more choices, but Demon Hunter is a lot of fun. Demon Hunter has very good choices in their talents as well, but it's not too many percentage damage things that you can pick up. That's really just in your base kit. And they have the fantastic utility of sigils. I honestly think Blood DK and Vengeance Demon Hunter are probably going to be the best Mythic tanks. Mythic plus tanks, at least. I see no scenario in which any of the other tanks can compete, especially Blood DKs having a battle res and a mass script themselves, and then Demon Hunters just being able to cheese their Sigil of Silence and their Sigil of Change depending on their talent setup, and if they get really, really lucky at one of the legendaries. Overall, I wouldn't say that they're the strongest raid tanks. They're very middle of the road, but easily best or second best Mythic plus dungeon tank in the game. No competition there. And then we come to the Brewmaster. Now, the poor Brewmaster gets beaten up all over the place. Everyone's saying they're the worst tank. Everyone's saying, they're not unique in any way, shape, or form. They don't bring anything to the table. Even I have come away from the Brewmaster, even though it was my first real enjoyable tank class that I really mained and raided with. The problem with Brewmaster is that, yes, they can negate all burst. Yes, in the right hands, they'll be able to do some phenomenal things that other tanks can't do. Being able to stagger so much of any attack and then purify it off. As long as you're paying attention, you purify it the second it hits you. You just shave multiple thousands of damage off of you for relatively no cost. And it's not like it's a very difficult rotation to maintain or anything. It just takes a lot of difficult decision making. And the truth is, for all that complexity, all that decision making, all that expertise, you don't really get much of a gain out of it. There's no utility that a Brewmaster brings outside of their statue, Dave, which is great for picking up ads, but it's just picking up ads. It's not doing damage to ads. It's not burst AoE. They're good at, for example, AoE stun. They have leg sweep, but with all the new Demon Hunters that are going to be coming out, you're guaranteed to have at least 1 or 2 AoE stuns. You don't really need that on a tank. And when you have tanks like Vengeance or Blood bringing mass grip, which only they bring, right? Or Warriors bringing 3% leech for the entire raid, or Paladins bringing Blessing of Spell Warding, or Druids bringing Stampeding Roar, Sadly, the Brewmaster just gets left behind. They're not bad, okay? I want to make this absolutely clear. You can tank on them just fine, but you have to ask yourself, you're tanking on a Brewmaster, you're doing all this extra work, you're really paying attention to what your rotation is and when to purify and everything, but what is the real benefit? What is the bonus that you bring? Where's the raid utility? Where's that, the unique moment where you're going to get to shine? That's kind of my thought process on it. And remember, guys, everything that I do, everything that I talk about, everything is geared towards Mythic tanking, Mythic plus dungeons, that very high-end mindset. At any other level, or even if you're not even going to be pushing Mythic, if you're doing Heroic and it cleared a couple times, then move to Mythic, you're fine. Play whatever tank you want. It doesn't matter. It's very, very important. Play whatever you like. Play whatever synergizes. That's a shit ton of thunder. My bad, guys. Florida is a piece of shit, and it's been raining like crazy. But play whatever it is that's going to make you happy. Mythic, pushing Mythic stuff on your server for the world. I'm not doing world race, but I'm doing server races and stuff. That's where my thought process comes in, where I'm saying like Guardian or Warrior, maybe Blood Decay, everything else is nil or not reliable. That's where that's coming from. But I did want to go ahead and give a little overview of all the tanks, where they stand. We're going to be going into a roller coaster of a ride. You guys have to remember, there's Warforging, there's Sockets, there's tertiary stats, which would be like Leech or Avoidance. There is Titan Forging. There are the artifacts with the random, trait bonuses. There's the legendary items. And then there's just artifact traits in general. We're going to be entering a time in World of Warcraft where there is so much variance in the things that you might be able to pick up. There's so much variation in one character to another. Some characters may get stupidly lucky and just luck out on everything. Other characters may have a harder time. We're going to be entering a very interesting point in the game for balance, for tank balance, for raid encounters, all that kind of stuff. And I'm very curious to see how Blizzard's going to be able to balance it all. I personally think that they're going to run into issues. I don't see it being possible to easily balance all of this. But I look forward just to the encounters and new expansion because, god damn it, I'm sick of my garrison. I'm sick of WoD, and I'm just excited to finally get this show on the road, get this game going, get this expansion out. I will be awake for the launch and everything else, and I'm just hoping you guys have a really, really fun and exciting launch week. Have a really fun and exciting time just enjoying the game. Try things out. Enjoy the time that you spend now. Make sure that you keep up with your artifact knowledge and your artifact levels, because that's what's going to get you very easy artifact points later on. Right now it's going to be a grind. Later on it won't be as bad. But overall, guys, I just want you to know, have fun with it. Have fun with it. We're finally going to get a new piece of content after, what is it, over a year. And I'm really excited for it personally. I don't know what the next video I do is going to be. If you've watched Monday Mark, you already know that I have two responsibilities. One, get my main and an ult geared up for Mythic raiding. Two, get all my tanks leveled so I can make content for you guys. I don't know how exactly it's going to work out. I know that I'm going to be streaming a lot of what I do. So there's going to be content, but it's not going to be these polished videos or, polished quotation marks, the polish that I can possibly do. They're not going to be edited with like all this crazy, Adobe stuff that I bought. It's not going to be like this video. It's not going to be as focused. It's going to be me streaming things, me streaming Mythic Plus Dungeons, me streaming me leveling, me streaming, I don't know, me scratching my balls. I don't know. My point being that there's going to be content, but not the focused content you've come to be used to. And that's just because, of course, it's a new expansion. We all have to get leveled up, and then I can finally start bringing back that content to you guys once I'm at max level, once I have my artifact kind of done, when I'm able to jump into the heroics, give you a really good idea of what the tanks are like, and hopefully, really, really hopefully, I can get lucky and get some legendaries on my tanks, and I can tell you what it's like playing with that. Because that's what's going to really tell. If you have two tanks and one has a legendary and he just performs astronomically better than the other tank, there's a problem and it needs to be changed. But there you go, guys. That's it. That's the last thing before Legion. Tomorrow or tonight, depending on what you do, everything changes, and I'm fucking excited. See you guys around. Have a good time. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and drop it a like. You can subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content just like this. And I want to thank the time each and every single one of you took out of your day to go ahead and watch this, as well as a very special thank you to my Patreon patrons who continue to make this dream a reality through their monthly continued support. If you'd like to go ahead and become a Patreon patron, you can go ahead and click right there on the logo. It'll take you right to the page. And other than that, you can go ahead and tweet me or follow me at Tauriel here on Twitter. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, fantastic day. See you guys around.
Turns to gray, we'll calmly walk away from the fray. When structure falls and all else fails, we will build it once again. We can climb